China making good on its trade threats, stoking fears of a trade war. Starting today, China will slap tariffs on $3 billion worth of U.S. goods, retaliation against President Trump's duties on foreign steel and aluminum. The Chinese tariffs hit 128 U.S. products, ranging from agricultural products, pork, fruit, nuts to steel pipes and aluminum. This move is the latest in escalating tensions between China and the U.S., which may only get worse. The president has more trade actions in the works, like tariffs on some $50 billion worth of Chinese goods. Experts warn they could cause further retaliation, and a trade war will be devastating for U.S. consumers, investors, and companies. The president has long accused Beijing of unfair trade practices that steal American jobs. For his first year in office, did not make any major trade moves. However, the exodus of a number of globalists from the White House, like Gary Cohn and Rex Tillerson, may be freeing the president to follow through on trade threats. China has repeatedly said it does not want a trade war, but warns it will take firm countermeasures if necessary.
Well, joining us this morning, Washington Examiner commentary writer Philip Wegman. Good morning, Philip.
See you, Phil.
Morning.
So let's start off with trade. I mean, what does this do? We're now seeing the United States made a move, and now overnight China has made a move, slapping on these tariffs. I mean, what does this do to the relationship between the two countries? After all, they both need each other. When you look at China, the U.S. needs them as they try to work with North Korea to denuclearize. So what does this do to the relationship, you think?
I think what this shows is that the casualties of this war on trade are much more widespread than just industries here and there. Like you said a moment ago, yes, this is going to have significant impact on markets here in the United States, but it also has a significant impact on international relations. Remember, China is actually our best friend when it comes to getting North Korea to behave. They're not, the best actor, but they're the best negotiating partner we have when we're trying to get that rogue regime to come to the table and start acting rationally. So not only do you have, consumers here in this country who are going to see higher prices and perhaps see less growth in their industry. Think about farming industry in particular, but also we're going to see a cost on the international stage where perhaps China is going to be less willing to work with us when it comes to getting North Korea in line, because after all, we're going to war with them when it comes to the economy.
Yeah, it could have real impact on Trump voters in the middle of the country, but stay tuned for that. Looks like that's down the road a bit. Let's talk now about just a nice, pleasant Easter weekend for most of us, except for, of course, the president, who decided to go on Twitter. And Phil, this is why we need him to play golf on Easter Sunday and not tweet. Take a look at this one. On DACA, Border Patrol agents are not allowed to properly do their job at the border because of ridiculous liberal laws like catch and release, getting more dangerous caravans coming. Republicans must go to the nuclear option to pass laws now. No more DACA deal. I'm going to let you take your pick there. What are the issues with this tweet?
Well, first off, I think that more golf is always a good thing for this president. I think it's always a good thing for presidents in general. I'm of the opinion that, the government's least is probably the best. And if that means sending our leaders to the golf course, I think that that's okay. But yeah, if you look at what he's saying right here, he's kind of conflating the issues when it comes to immigration and DACA. Clearly, he's doing that because this is something that the conservative base is up in arms about. But, we've seen this debate play out. We know that Democrats declined some, compromises that Republicans put forward, and also vice versa. But I think what this does show is that the president, he likes using illegal immigration as his hobby horse because that's his issue. It's his pet issue, but he changes his message. He's saying right now that ICE agents and Border Patrol agents, they aren't able to do their jobs. Well, literally a year ago in March, he was bragging about how ICE agents and Border Patrol agents were doing such a great job that border crossings were down 40%. So this is inconsistent messaging at best. And I think that what this shows is that DACA was a strong suit for this president. Now he's just kind of listing, and I don't think that he can freewheel on this issue ahead of the midterms.
Let alone when he mentions the nuclear option, he doesn't have Republican votes on the White House proposal. But extending that one more, when he says no DACA deal, theoretically that means no border wall, right? Because if they don't give Democrats something, no chance he gets the wall, right?
Well, I mean, we've gone through this back and forth. I mean,
Yeah.
we remember right before what Republicans labeled the Schumer shutdown, that President Trump was willing to, give amnesty for these DACA recipients, that he was able to hammer out a deal in exchange for funding for his border wall. I think what we've seen now is that this is empty rhetoric because the omnibus is passed. Members of Congress are going home. They're campaigning. They're not willing to get into a big fight over a legacy issue like this. This is something that the next Congress is going to have to deal with. And if control of the House shifts to Democrats, I think that President Trump lost his last significant opportunity to do something on the wall and on DACA.
In the little bit of time that we have left, help me understand the strategy here, because publicly both sides of the aisle say they do want a DACA fix. When the president tweets and takes that option off the table completely, saying no deal at all, why would he abandon it? I mean, his own Republicans say they want a DACA fix. Why would he abandon it altogether?
Not to be too cynical, but I just think that this shows that when it comes to both Republicans and Democrats, they see that a lack of a DACA deal is actually advantageous to them going into the midterms. What Republicans can say is that they were willing to do an honest, good effort at finding the compromise, and that Democrats turn them away from the negotiating table. And Democrats in turn can go to their base and say that Republicans are heartless and were never serious about getting anything done. This is the sort of thing that is going to whip each of their main core voters into high gear ahead of the elections, where if you were actually to do the hard work and actually come up with a compromise, I think that would cost that could cost significant political capital and perhaps disenfranchise some of your base. So the cynical play here is that Republicans and Democrats have more to gain by not getting a solution.
Using Dreamers as a bargaining chip, it sounds like.
All right, you mentioned midterms. Next half hour, I want to ask you about some surprising numbers that show how unpopular Nancy Pelosi is, or at least how Republicans think that's the case based on their ads. Philip Wegman, we'll talk to you in just a bit.